Hey guys, welcome back. I'm here with George from the CryptosRUs channel. George and I are about to talk about some mainstream traditional financial news, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the drop that Bitcoin has been undergoing ever since November 10th last year. George, thank you so very much for coming on the channel. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again. I mean, the market's not looking so good, but hopefully we can encourage people to stay in and stay focused and get through it together.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that about you. And by the way, before we get started, I want to congratulate you. You actually did a kind of just a off-the-cuff live stream about the Federal Reserve meeting and the announcement that happened a couple of days ago. And I think you had 18,000 concurrent watching your show. Congratulations, man. How'd that feel?
It was wild. You know, the live chat was kind of nuts, and we had a good time watching Powell say a whole lot of nothing. It was it was a meeting where he basically said at a high level, this is what we plan on doing, but we have no plans at all. So you have to wait until until our next meeting to find out what we're actually going to do. So it was a whole lot of nothing.
Well, let's start there with Powell, actually, because I mean, it makes sense that a politician would give a political answer. He's not technically exactly a politician, but he's obviously in the political landscape. Does that instill any confidence in you? And should we be looking at the Federal Reserve anyway to give us confidence of monetary policy anymore?
Well, that's a tough question. You know, obviously he has a lot of power, and whatever he says, whatever he decides can sway markets like it has been. You know, equity market, stock market has been really wild ever since that that meeting and the whole lot of nothingness that came out of it. Right now we're in that weird situation where I find everyone is trying to read in between the lines, putting two and two together, mostly Wall Street. And they're being very, very reactive right now. You could tell that the market right now is definitely a trader's market, not an investor's market. You know, these wild swings, you know, up and down, left and right. And unfortunately, it's carrying over into crypto. So I think bottom line is this, Jerome Powell has a very difficult situation ahead of him. A lot of it is based on his own fault, I guess, but I mean, it's not like he decided what to do. He was told what to do, but because of how much printing that was done in 2020 and 2021, we have inflation, hyperinflation, right? We're above 7%. We may hit 8%, and he needs to do something to stop it, right? So this is his job in terms of figuring out what to do to stop inflation, yet not cause the economy to go back into a recession. That's also difficult, because if he raises rates too quickly or too often, the markets could definitely crash and we get back to recession time, and then he's going to have to spin up the money printer once again. So he has to be very careful and tread lightly and say all the right things. And trust me, everything he's saying, I think is very calculated, because he knows people are going to try to read in between the lines and react to it. So he's in a very difficult spot. I don't envy his position. Like, I don't think anyone is envious of his position right now. I mean, it's just him and his other buddies on in the Federal Reserves. They have to really be careful with what to do. And unfortunately, this is the landscape we're in right now.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. He's in a very unenviable position. And I think it's very easy for us to paint a target on the back of Jerome Powell or whoever, you know, at any given time, whoever's in charge of one government agency, and say, oh, it's all their fault. But they're the figurehead and the responsibility goes to them. The buck stops with them. But at the end of the day, the fact is, we've been printing money uncontrollably for a lot longer than Jerome Powell's been in office. So I also don't want to, and this is what you're talking about, I don't want to throw all the blame on Jerome Powell. It's a broken system that he inherited, but I'm hoping that he will be able to turn it around in some way. But let's pivot here a little bit, because I want to talk about three major events that are going on in the fundamental landscape of crypto right now, and then tie them all up into a nice, neat bow. Another thing that we've seen going on right now is something called the America Competes Act. And both of us, we can keep it high level, but can you kind of detail what exactly exactly that is, because right now it's a buzzword. What exactly is the implication of that? Why are names like Charles Hoskinson talking about this?
Well, I think he's the one. We have to give him credit for bringing it up, and
Yep.
I'm not sure how he found out about it, but there is at a high level this act that is basically used for the Treasury, Janet Yellen, and how she can look at transactions and basically stop transactions she feel like is part of some illegal scheme, right? Whether it's money laundering or something else that's suspicious, she has the ability then to stop it and freeze it and analyze it. And these transactions can be from anything, including cryptocurrency transactions. So at a high level, this is what Charles was very angry about in terms of this one little kind of like it's not this one little passage, I guess, that was brought up in another act. It was refused, and then this one politician decided to sneak it into this act, right? Thinking that no one would notice. And if this act, which is a lot more encompassing, it's not just focused on this, it's a lot more to that. But if it's passed, then you get this little passage that's also passed, which would give Janet Yellen a lot of power to stop cryptocurrency transactions and could stop exchanges overall. So I think this is why Charles is very adamant about us trying to stop it. And I'm glad he brought it to light.
Yeah, no, I absolutely am too, because the thing he's concerned about, and I want your take on this, but is it a good, and I think I know your answer on this, but is it a good idea for the government to give unilateral authority to one unelected official the ability to ban pretty much any asset class or certain areas of that asset class? Does that show us just how much we really need decentralized cryptocurrency assets?
Yeah, it does. I mean, this goes back to why Bitcoin was created in the first place. Distrust in the powers at be, powers at play. The government and the banks and the treasury and everyone else. Right? That's at the top of the food chain, making decisions for everyone else. And we saw the destruction that it almost brought in the last recession back in 2008, 2009 with the housing bubble, and how if the government didn't bail out the banks, we would have had worldwide financial meltdown, right? So that's why Bitcoin was created, to prevent something like that from happening. With what's going on right now, definitely it's something that we should be concerned about. Yet I feel like on the other hand, in some ways we need to embrace it as well, because you and I know there's a lot of shady stuff that's happening in cryptocurrency too. We can't pretend like this open market, this decentralized nature of everything is entirely good, because there are a lot of scam projects and a lot of rug pulls, a lot of hacks that go on, right? And there's a lot of things that's happening right now that I think some eyes or some regulations can help. And this is something that Michael Saylor also argues, that with Bitcoin, you get more legitimacy when there's regulations that actually that'll actually help in the long run. Short term, maybe not. Long term will probably help, but we have to be careful, right? It's like with anything, if we just let the government decide for us, we're going to start losing our freedoms very quickly. And we need to be careful of that. So we need to watch out for what's proposed. And if we do not like it and it's going to harm the entire industry, then we need to speak up about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I tweeted this a couple of weeks ago. The governments began down the path of authoritarianism and tyranny the moment that they forget that they are empowered by the people, not that they have power over the people. They are given their power by the people. They are not the masters of the people. And that's something that I think a lot of our governments have forgotten, because they have control of the currency. And because they have control of the currency, they have the ability to control the economy. If you control the economy, you control everything. So let me ask you one final fundamental piece of news, and then I want to bring all this together with one other question here. There was an anonymous source, and am just as tired of all the anonymous sources in the media in the last 5-10 years everybody else is. But this is probably true. They came out and said that the White House is looking into researching and potentially regulating cryptocurrency by executive order as a matter of national security, which the undertone there is that the White House may be seeing the cryptocurrency industry as a national security threat. And funnily enough, it kind of makes sense because Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is a threat to what? Not necessarily national security, but the hegemony of the US dollar and the power that the government has over it. So let me ask you this. What do you think do you think that we're about to see a lot of regulation coming down from the executive branch? And also, two, do you think it's coincidental, the timing on one of these anonymous sources coming out and saying something? Is there any manipulation potentially going on here?
Well, unfortunately with the media, a lot of things are just like stated and not backed by any facts. And these anonymous sources turn out to be a whole lot of, sometimes nobody, and sometimes it's fake. I think we remember like last year, I think Reuters or someone came out, and I forget the headline, but it was a very, very bad headline about something. And it turned out that was based on a false press release, like a fake press release.
I remember what you're talking about. I remember that. I can't remember what it was, but I remember something like that happening.
Right. Yeah. And I remember it was like such a big deal. It caused the market to crash. And then it turned out it was all fake.
I remember that.
Right. But, what's happening, I think this relates to that other act we talked about. I think the thing that's scaring people right now, because that last point, national security, national security could be very encompassing, and it could be just the current administration trying to watch out for what other countries may be trying to do to the US utilizing cryptocurrency. I don't interpret it as it has to be an attack on crypto, that somehow crypto is looked at as an enemy by the Federal Reserve or by the US government. I see it as a national security, as if, maybe Russia or China is utilizing cryptocurrency and undermining the USD in some way. Like, that's how I'm looking at it. And if so, then I think that's proper, because we don't want, definitely don't want one of the other world powers to do shady things under our noses, utilizing crypto and us not knowing about it. Right. So that's how I view it. And of course, this anonymous source that somehow Bloomberg and Reuters or whoever that, reported, who knows where it came from, or maybe they just made it up, or it's just through the grapevine and we don't know yet. But it makes sense that regulations are coming. And like I said, I don't think everything is bad. I think it legitimizes the space. And here's an example I just thought about, because there's a lot of FUD about Tether. There has always been a lot of FUD about Tether ever since 2017, ever since Bitfinex created Tether out of nowhere. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not they really have the cash that backs whatever it is at 70 or 80 billion USDT. Do they really have that cash? They've been audited many times and somehow they keep winning, right? But there's still this controversy. So I would say, like, if we actually get regulations around stable coins, because the US government wants to come out CBDC, and then they start looking at what USDC and USDT is doing, and BUSD and all these other stable coins, right? And making sure that they actually have the reserves that they promise, right? As long as they don't shut it down, which maybe they tried to, and that's part of the bad. But the good is, if they can verify that some of these stable coin issuers are actually legit, they actually have the funds, and we have no worry about them going belly up one day, I say that's a win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let me tie all three of those points together now in another question. So we've got Jerome Powell coming out saying that, okay, we basically have no idea what we're doing. At least we have no plan at the moment. We're going to come back to you in March. That's pretty much what he said. Like, okay, right. We don't know what we're going to do with interest rates. We don't know what we're going to do with QE. We don't know what we're going to do with the federal funds rate. That's pretty much the gist that I got from it. And then we also have this America Competes Act coming out. A lot of people talking about that in crypto. Like I said, I think Charles is the one that really got the ball rolling on that. And now we've also got this issue that we just spoke about with, anonymous insider sources close to the White House. I always love when somebody's close to the White House. It's like a guy's walking down the street. He's like, "Oh, I just came up with something. I'm close to the White House. I'll tell the media." How much fear, uncertainty, and doubt do you think articles and stories like this are adding into cryptocurrency, and how big of an impact do you think news stories like this are having?
I think
on the price.
I think they're having major impact right now, especially because Bitcoin is under 40,000. If we were at 60,000 or 50,000, I think people would react better. But right now, it's causing the fear. I think the reason why Bitcoin is not going up partially is because there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines and they're worried about all these things. And there's geopolitical stuff like, Ukraine and Russia and US, right? Stuff like that. But this is all happening like right now, right? Like all within a matter of a month since December to now, it's all coming up, and you can't.
Well, it's scaring
it's hard to ignore.
Too. Yeah, it's scaring the stock market too. The stock market's gone to a giant dip.
Yeah, I mean, psychologically, I think everyone likes to think that they're really strong-willed, mentally tough, and they could get through anything. But it's one thing to think that when your portfolio is doing fine. It's another when it's down 50%. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's very true, and that actually is a perfect segue into one of the final questions I want to ask you here, George. Let's pivot away from geopolitics and the financial markets a little bit more towards what people are struggling with right now. You talked about being down 50%. I want to ask you, what are some of the things that people can do, not even so much trading strategy wise, although I definitely tell us about that if you'd like, but as far as mentally, to be able to hold on and not lose confidence in the cryptocurrency market when, let's say, Bitcoin's at $37,000 when we're recording this and they bought at 65,000, 69,000, 52,000, 54,000. What would you tell somebody that's a hodler right now and they bought really high and they're very, very down?
This is tough because I have to remember that not everyone has been through crypto winter. Like you and I and many other people have been through it, and we've been through much worse, right? And so we re-emphasize the fact that we have been through it, we have seen it, and we have come up and we have formed new highs. But for new people coming in, they haven't lived through it. And ultimately, we're just a couple of guys on YouTube, right? So why should they listen to us? Why should they care what we say? I always have to remind myself that when I'm streaming, because, especially someone that bought at 65, 69, they're like, it's at 37. How can I believe anything anything that you say? You could say all these things, but how is it true, right? So that's why I have to back what I say with facts. And these days, there's so much analytics out there, so much metrics that measure pretty much everything that can be measurable when it comes to Bitcoin and the network and users and the growth and the purchases, the supply. I mean, literally everything is measurable, and we have so many tools out there now that does that. So what I try to do is I'm like, hey, look at what's happening right now. So there's a couple things I like to really emphasize right now. Number one is the reserves on exchanges. People don't quite understand that Bitcoin is scarce and there's only a certain amount. And as we get closer and closer to getting to the last Bitcoin being mined, scarcity is definitely an important thing. That's what drives prices up. And what we're seeing right now is the fluctuation is based on the trades on the exchanges. But what people don't realize is that's a very small amount. That's only 16% of the supply that's on the exchanges right now. What about the 84%? Well, they're being held in cold wallets, and they're being held with custodians, and they're not being traded. So everything that we're basing off of is the 16% that's on exchanges. But here's the kicker: that 16% is decreasing. It used to be 20%, then 19, 18, 16. Eventually, as more and more is removed from exchanges, well, that's going to cause the supply to drop even more. And of course, demand, if it's still there, even if demand doesn't go up, even if demand just stays the same, it's going to cause a price hike just from that alone. And why is that happening? Well, that's where you got to kind of educate the users like, hey, the reason why the reserves are dropping is because someone is buying, or many people are buying, and they're just removing it from the exchanges. They're utilizing the low prices. So they take it and then they pretty much store it away, right? So that's one metric that I love to show people. And it kind of confuses people because they're like, that doesn't make any sense. If so many people are buying, why does the price go down then? It should cause the price to go up, but they don't understand that this is based on a very small percentage of Bitcoin that's on exchanges. And if you look at another metric that complements this, which is the liquid supply, the liquid supply is basically all the exchanges, all the reserves of Bitcoin that's not on exchanges. And that keeps going up. It keeps going up, despite the fact that we have fallen 50%. That did not dip at all. So the number of people that are holding, the number of people are buying, and this includes also the miners, which now have a new strategy where basically they don't sell anything. They're just keeping everything. So these are the metrics that I like to point out to newcomers and say, hey, you know what? This is the reason why Bitcoin will continue back up. Don't take my word for it. Look at the data, right? Look at what's really happening behind the scenes with the supply. And they're going away. They're going away fast. And then you complement this with many other things like network health. How many addresses are there? Are they going up? Is the hash rate for the network going up? Are the miners continuing to mine Bitcoin? And you add all this together, then you only come to one conclusion, that Bitcoin will recover and will continue forward. It just may take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I think patience is key. I've said a lot recently, patience tested is patience built. So if you're new to the cryptocurrency space and your patience is being tested, just know this is how your patience gets built. George and I have been through the same thing. George, I think you were in the space during 2018, during the bear market, were you?
Mm-hmm.
You are? Yeah, I got in mid 2017. I was through all of that. I started the YouTube channel. I was trying to build the YouTube channel, and then a bear market hit, and I'm like, crap. So I had about a year of patience being tested, and I learned a lot there. And I just encourage you that if you're new to cryptocurrency, remember that patience tested is patience built. And also remember that price is downstream of fundamentals. As the fundamentals grow, the price follows. It's that simple. It just takes time. It doesn't happen on the scale of a day or 3 days or a week or a month. It takes place on the order of years. But as those fundamentals continue to develop, so too the price will follow. And so one final question, George. I may have asked you this on our channel before. I'm not sure if I have or not, but I ask everyone I interview this. What is the number one piece of advice, not financial advice, we're not financial advisors, what's your number one piece of non-financial advice that you would give to someone in cryptocurrency that's been here for less than 12 months?
To have patience. It really, that's the ultimate thing.
There you go.
I mean, honestly, it's not even just crypto. It's anything that's an investment. It really comes down to patience. The longer you hold something that's worth holding, the more valuable it becomes. And it's no different than crypto.
I love that. Well, George, where can everybody find you? Pretty much everybody who's watching this probably already follows you, but where can people find you if they, for some reason, aren't?
Of course, you can find me on YouTube, CryptosRUs.com, just CryptosRUs, but I do have a publication, CryptosRUs.com. That's where there's a ton of articles about altcoins, about wallets, about anything that you may think of, and breaking news. It's all within there.
There you go. Well, George, thank you so very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Guys, we are George. Somebody's going to clip that. I wanted to say it to the man himself. Make sure to go subscribe to him and follow him on his Twitter. He got a lot of great stuff over on Twitter. I know a lot of y'all aren't following him on Twitter. Is it at CryptosRUs, right?
Yeah, I have an underscore. Unfortunately, someone stole that name before I was able to create it, but you'll find it on my channel. It's pretty easy. It's in the description.
Good deal. All right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. We're going to head out. Peace. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely consider subscribing because we're trying to help you become financially free in these cryptocurrency markets. And also consider following us on Twitter at CryptoJebb for more updates on the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Peace.